Hey gang, so I'm a little bit behind the curve on this one. Had a couple busy days at work and here we are. But this is the Sprintwatch that I do. And for those of you who haven't seen it before, basically what I do is I go through the roadmap roundup, I go through the release views or mark down the changes, and then the real meat of this is I go through the progress tracker. So if that sounds like something you want to listen to, by all means, see me after the break. Welcome back. This one might be a hair longer than my other ones recently, just because they just dropped patch 3.20, which was one of the things that was distracting me. Still have a couple bugs there to work out, and like I say in a couple of my vids, Star Citizen has a tendency to vacillate between being a game and being a tech demo. And this one, it actually seems like it's more on the game side, but some of the bugs, I got a whole C. Yeah, actually, I've got a whole D, but I've got a whole C as a loner. Yeah, I had some issues. It wouldn't load in the loading zone, stuff like that. So I'm just going to kind of wait until they hammer out some bugs and do a couple other things till I hear that bug's fixed. Then I'll jump back in and probably be doing a show on that. Me and a couple guys from my org are going to try to crew up the whole C for the duration of the patch, which for my estimates probably going to be about a month and a half. They're going to release 3.20.x for CitCon in about a little under a month. Wow, we're getting kind of close. Anyway, this right here is going to be a deeper dive than I usually do, although I probably won't go as deep as I have on previous deep dives. So, like I said in the intro, I go through the roadmap roundup, release view, and progress tracker, me of the project, or me of the show is in the progress tracker, where I kind of go through individual things that I'm seeing that are kind of changed. In this one, I'll go into a little bit more in depth about each one that I'm kind of seeing significant changes or that I think are significant for the project. Before we get into that, caveats. So, first caveat is these are sprints, so they work in the agile system. I was corrected on this by a commenter in the last sprint watch I did that said that sprints and agile aren't necessarily married together. That's just kind of something that some groups do, which is interesting. I hadn't heard that before. I always thought that sprints were an integral part of agile system. But anyway, CIG uses sprints. So what they do is they move in 2 weeks. At the end of the 2 weeks, they kind of say, hey, we need more resources. We need another team to work on this. We're done. Let's ship it. This is a dead end. We can't do it, or we need more R&D before this thing will go anywhere. Put a pin in it till later because we got other things that we need to take precedence on. And so just because something is 100% done, it just means that that is 100% of these sprints, which is why this is a sprint watch. Even items that are fully complete in the game might still be iterated on in a later patch. And we see examples of that almost every patch. But anyway, with that said, just because something's done does not mean it's done. Second caveat that I like to throw out there is that I am just a dude on the internet. I am just looking at the numbers and kind of reading the bones, the chicken bones, and coming up with what I think they mean. If CIG says something that contradicts what I'm saying, CIG is correct because they have the actual information. I'm just reading what they give us. Now, you could make arguments about the information they're giving us, but that's not what this particular show is about. So let's go ahead and get into this. So we're going to start out with the roadmap roundup. Got a few pretty interesting changes here, at least for the fellow shippo files out there. So notable changes for September 20th, 2023. Release view. The following cards have been added to the release view in the 3.20 column, targeting a launch with Alpha 3.20.x, so CitCon's patch. Argo SRV, and this is significant. Building, implementing, and balancing Argo's tugboat, the SRV is a game-ready vehicle. To this point, they have not... I think they've gotten one downstream team in there, but not both. I think the VFX team has worked on it, but not audio. It's Argo, so they have a pretty well-established style guide with the raft and the mole. So it shouldn't be too hard to do audio. That should be an easy win for CitCon. Vehicle tractor beams, of course, you're not getting... For a while there, I didn't think that we'd get the whole C before we got vehicle tractor beams, because it's kind of integral to how it loads up cargo. But then they did the workaround cargo system, and here we are. We're going to get it in about a month, though. Implementing tractor beams attached to ships, either remote operated or turret-like attachments. This allows players to move or tow bigger objects, including other ships. I think only the size 3s will be able to move ships, the one that's on the Argo SRB right now. Progress Tracker. The following deliverable has been added to the Progress Tracker. Origin G12. This is their rover, Origin's rover. Building, implementing, and balancing Origin's wheeled ground vehicle, the G12, is a game ready vehicle. That one's kind of cool. I've actually been waiting on that one. That's visually one of my favorite rovers. And it has an enclosed cockpit, which I don't think... No, the Ursa has enclosed. Anyway, all kind of cool. A lot of ship-related stuff of the 3 things they mentioned there. Let's look at the release view. So if you're not used to the release view, up here you can see... Oops, Jake missed this. PTU version 3.20. We're actually in the PU now. Is 3.20. We'll probably get 3.20.1 in the at least Steve Accotti branch pretty soon, if they're going to even let us test that. But anyway, locations, new Crusader platforms, which is cool. They pulled these out of, I think it was originally going to drop with the original 320, and they were like, it's not quite right for prime time. These are hopefully going to be more than just bunker runs in the clouds, and it will actually be other trade locations on Crusader, because Crusader is really lacking content at the moment. Vehicle tractor beams, of course, that's going to be the Argo SRV. On top of that, the real question is if the other ships are going to get their tractor beams. So you've got the 315P, the Cutlass, the Caterpillar, Hull C, Connie Taurus. There's a few ships out there with tractor beams on them that can at least move the big boxes. The real question is that right now in 3.20, they kind of have a workaround. They've said it's a workaround where we can use the small multi-tool to move any size box. Chances are, once vehicle tractor beams are in, until we get the industrial tractor beam, which is like the size of a bazooka, which in theory is done, the sprint is complete on it. Whether the actual thing is done or not, see the caveat. But I would assume that we're not going to be able to move the big boxes and smaller vehicles and stuff like that with anything less than one of those vehicle tractor beams or the industrial tractor beam, which is the big handheld one. Moving on down, retrieve consignment. This is basically just you're given a shopping list and you have to bring the things back. Whether you'll actually have to get them from specific locations or if they'll say, we need 100 iron, and you just go get 100 iron and bring them 100 iron. I don't know. We haven't heard that much about it. All this stuff now in the game, 3.20, go have fun. Argo SRV. They have gotten really good that they won't put something on here unless they're really sure they're going to get it done. Yeah, it's looking good. Argo SRV should be easy to get in. Tumbrel Stank, again, should be pretty easy to get in. C1, A1, both of those are pretty easy. The C1, I was thinking that's another one with the tractor beam that they weren't going to bring it in until the tractor beam was in, because why not? And I wanted to say, nope, that was it. So that's it for the release view. Let's pop on over to the progress tracker. So there's a good number of things I could talk about on the progress tracker. If I'm not talking about something, it's probably showing up like additional derelict settlements. Interesting thing about additional derelict settlements, now that I'm going to talk about it after I said that I wouldn't, is this is one of those that even though it keeps going and going and going, it's the other end of the coin from if it's 100% done, it might not be 100% done. We will be getting additional derelict settlements for years. They're going to keep rolling out more and more settlements and more tools and templates for their settlements. So this should never end, or maybe 2 or 3 years down the line they'll be like, we've got enough asset packs, just jam them together and make settlements. That one will just keep going, and they'll just drop them in on us as they go. There's a couple that are like that. Actor status tier 2. This is one that kind of looks like it's wrapping for CitCon. I would be surprised if they did. This is one that involves DNA integrity, medical insurance, cybernetic limbs, and cloning. So where you get cloned if you die and you're brought back might make a difference on the longevity of your clone. You might lose arms and stuff like that just because you spawned a Grim Hex versus Orison, for example. Just one is much better equipped to bring someone back to life or handle tier 2, tier 3 injuries. Yeah, so this is probably tier 2 and tier 3 injuries, which tier 2 and tier 1 injuries that we have not seen in this game yet. Would be my guess on that. And it has a lot to do with NPCs. So NPC status tracking, that one right there, and the fact that it includes hygiene, that might mean that it's going to wait until server meshing when they're sure that the subsumption and quanta are acting correctly. Then this might be waiting on that. So even if they wrap it now, it's waiting for the additional tech of server meshing. So actor status tier 2, maybe CitCon. I would think it's going to be something that's going to come after server meshing just because the NPC link in. And speaking of server meshing and subsumption and quanta and all of that, you can sort of see all of these AI things. A lot of them are for Squadron 42, but not all of them. Some of them, like AI usable system, unmanned missile turrets, planetary navigation, all of those things are PU specific, and they're all probably waiting on server meshing to take the load off the servers so that the NPCs start acting more naturally, which this patch they actually did start acting a little better. So I do want to talk about this one right here. Someone made a post on Reddit about, will we ever have a helmet like this? And it showed Iron Man's helmet, and I went, well, yeah, they have plans for it. They have that one helmet that they demoed ages ago where, you know, it all slides up and opens up, shows the mask, and then the mask can come up. That's the animatable gunner helmet. And they've had it done for a while. It's right there, Squadron 42. We're probably not getting it in the PU until after Squadron 42 is out, though. But I just thought it'd be fun to mention that. A post on Tokyo. Some people are thinking this one will come in CitCon. I'm not seeing it. It looks like probably next year. There's no downstream teams in this, which is VFX, GFX, and audio. Haven't taken their bite of it. And since this is the first real Xi'an ship, we have the Car-2 but that's an old ship. So this one's going to sort of set the gold standard for what Xi'an is, and then they'll probably go back and tweak the Scout, because the Scout has an enormous cross-section. Really cool ship, but huge. Very easy to pop. Sentoki, if I had to guess, they'd probably drop it for Alien Week next year. So March thereabouts. I think it's March, or is it June? No, March is Invictus. Yeah, I think it's June. So look for it then. It could come out earlier though. Just they might just release it when it's done. All their Arena Commander things, they're in game now, but they're still tweaking them and polishing them. Not unusual. Artificial gravity. This is all related to the engineering and resource management gameplay. So until that drops in, we're probably not getting artificial gravity. But that doesn't mean that resource management might not be coming at CitCon. I just wouldn't count on it. I think that that'll be a next year thing. That they'll drop 4.0 to the PTU at IAE or the end of the year. They might announce it at CitCon that it's in Evocati or whatever, but I would not expect to see that until next year. Just engineering would be a very complicated game loop that touches everything. So I would expect that to be a next year thing. So Bounty Hunter V2 is one that I thought we were going to get this year, but the EU landing zone team is working on it, which I'm assuming is the holding cells for people, and the mission feature team. I'm also sure that it's not a real easy thing to sort through, because how do you handle griefing? Because you think about it, a bounty hunter can grab someone, or anyone can grab somebody and throw their body or their person into one of those little holding things. And so do you give the player a choice, spawn in prison or wait here? Because you might want to wait in the containment thing, the little coffin, because your friends might be able to bust you out. They're going to have to implement something like that, because a bounty hunter could grab you and then just keep you locked up for ever, basically. So would they get a bounty on their head? I don't know, but it'd be a hell of a way to grief someone, to just sort of be like, yeah, you're just going to stay in the back of my ship until you pay me however much. Welcome to being encased in carbonite. So yeah, I would assume that you will have the option, and then the bounty hunter will actually have to fly to a location and drop off your body, whether you are attached to that body or not. So it would say you didn't die, you were captured, now you're in prison, kind of like they do now with Glesher. And the bounty hunter would have an object with value, and that value would be your body, and they'd have to take that to one of these locations and drop your body off. That's how I think that they'll get around the whole potentially griefing thing, and you will have the option of either going to prison or waiting it out, because you'd have to have the option of waiting it out for some people, because like Mongrel Squad or something like that would probably be real keen on getting their friend back, and would probably become very good at it. Just saying. Building interiors. This is one that last year I thought building interiors were going to come with the new Lorville, and they obviously did not. I think what they are waiting on now is the new underground buildings, and those aren't coming until we get Pyro, I don't think. Either way, we're not getting it until next year. Squadron 42. So even though I just have chapter 1 open here, all of them, you can sort of see they're all kind of ending here. Some people are thinking this means that Squadron 42 is coming this year. It is not. It is not. So the only people that actually know that's a possibility are the people that are already involved in this project. If CIG wants Squadron 42 to be a success, they're going to have like a year lead time to build up hype for the game for the multitudes of people who have no idea Star Citizen even exists, much less Squadron 42. So they're going to be building hype. What I think is going to happen at CitCon on one of the 2 days, probably day 1, is announce that Squadron 42 is dropping Q4 of next year, 2024. They aren't going to drop Squadron 42 this year. That would be a bad move by the marketing team. Just they need more lead time. They need more build up. But I would assume next year is going to be all about Squadron 42 and all the nifty things it can do. Marketing will be going full blast on that, would be my guess. So we'll see. Okay, so Crusader Spirit, you can see that it wrapped all the way back here in Q2. It did not wrap all the way back there in Q2. First off, no downstream teams, so no audio, no GFX, no VFX anywhere in there. They're going to take their bite. They've got a couple weeks to do it. They'll get it done. The ship itself, from what we've seen, is done. They used to have this bar stretching out and out and out and out to around here, and that's because the E1 was probably going to be the next one worked on. The problem is the E1 would be the first passenger ship in the game, like dedicated passenger ship, and they haven't hammered out that game loop. Like, it showed up briefly on the progress tracker, I want to say late last year, and then they took it off. So the E1 is not ready for prime time. And honestly, it would be kind of stupid to do that before subsumption and server meshing and quantum comes in. Because, I mean, otherwise, it's not going to do you any good if the NPCs aren't boarding the ship because there's not enough memory on the server for them to know they need to do that. So they need to solve the server lag and all the other issues, and then they can start focusing in on that. But the A1 and the C1, we're getting those. We're not getting them 2 months ago, but we're getting those. So cutting tier 2. This will be a big one. It turns out, so if you ever watch the Squadron 42, what do you call it? Vertical slice. The vertical slice for Squadron 42. They use the multi-tool to cut through beams holding grate in place. So they're definitely going to do that. But one of the things that was kind of cool that they added on here a couple months ago was allow players to cut through specific objects. This will primarily include the ability to freeform cut on specific surfaces. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. I will definitely be cutting out dick shapes and leaving them in people's ships. Just saying. Different ammunition types are coming. Distortion propagation is a whole weapon type. So you got lasers, ballistics, missiles, and distortion. Those I could see dropping around CitCon. That would be kind of a fun one to find out that, hey, you've got 3 new ammunition types, which are disarray, incendiary, and I'm forgetting one, but there's another one out there too. I think stun. We don't have any non-lethal weapons in the game outside of your fists, so some stun weapons would make sense with bounty hunting. But distortion propagation, yeah, they're basically going to rework the way that distortion guns work. Freight elevator. So this is kind of a cool one because they just talked about it on ISC today. So if you want to know more about freight elevators, watch ISC from earlier today, or it might be yesterday, depending on when this thing finishes uploading and I finish editing. Freight elevators are going to be a next year thing, but they're looking really cool. Basically, they are what I've been saying they were going to be for the last couple months. So it's good to have that confirmation, but effectively, they will be the bridge between your inventory and your character. So you'll be able to say, I'm buying 300 boxes of whatever, and it'll be on the freight elevator. It won't just magically appear in your ship. It'll appear on this freight elevator, and then you'll have to move it onto your ship, or you'll have to pay NPCs or maybe even other players to move it onto your ship or off and onto the freight elevator. Freight elevators will also allow you, you'll have your inventory for that location, but if you want to have it, you're not just going to be able to reach into the bag of holding and pull it out. So if you've got 30 guns stored on the station, if you land on that station now, you just say, oh, I want that gun and that gun, they just appear on your backpack. Now they're going to be on that freight elevator. You're going to have to walk over, physically grab them and put them on, or take them off of your pack, put them on the freight elevator to store them into local inventory. So freight elevators are going to change a lot of things, but that's going to be next year. You don't need to worry about that for this year. Headhunters, Pyro Gang, unless we get Pyro this year, which we might, but I don't think Pyro's coming this year. I think the most likely thing is that we get Pyro in Evil Kadi or the PTU. Headhunters are a Pyro Gang. We're not seeing Headhunters until we get Pyro. Here's that incendiary ammunition I was talking about. And here's jump points. So jump points, obviously we have to have jump points before we're getting Pyro, but it looks like they're wrapping pretty soon. Jump points is one that's wrapped a few times and they just keep extending it out. It makes sense that they would just keep polishing it until they're ready to drop Pyro and just make it look as cool as possible, because it is how we will travel star system to star system. It will be the first thing you see when you're entering a new system. So better to make it look cool. Life support, again, there's resource management and engineering game loop. Again, kind of wrapping around CitCon. I would be floored if we got resource management and engineering in that patch. That would be the 3.20.x patch. I don't think so. If they do have an end of the year patch, 3.21, so Space Tomato actually mentioned this, and he is correct. And if you don't follow Space Tomato, follow Space Tomato. This is the first time that we've had a patch in our hands and we don't know what's coming next. And I think the reason they're doing that is because they're going to drop a surprise at CitCon. Then they'll put up 3.21 and they'll have a bunch of neat things here. That's my theory. We'll see if that's right. Once again, random dude on the internet. No inside track, just assuming if we are getting Pyro in 3.21, that would kind of make sense that they wouldn't put it on the roadmap. Anyway, life support, engineering. I still say engineering and resource management is next year thing. Map and radar system rework. A whole bunch of UI improvements. They made it possible, this patch 3.20, it isn't the MFD rework, which is going to be much more specific to ship, but they made it that there's permanence now. So if you, so I flew the Banu Defender, was my daily driver a lot of the time. But one of the things that was annoying about the Banu Defender is that the two screens that were right in front of your face, it has 4 screens. So it has 2 screens down here and 2 screens up here. The 2 that you could see while you were flying, even when you have head tracking, you have to look down, would be like comms and power management. And then you'd have targeting and like shields were down here. So they were out of sight. So you'd always have to change it to like, self. That's what it was, like shields and your little paper doll. So you'd have to move it up here so that you could see what the hell was happening to your ship. They've made it so that when you move those, every time you got out of your seat, it would reset those. Now they've made it so it's permanent until that ship is destroyed, whatever you set those MFDs to, which is really useful for the older ships that only have a couple MFDs here or there, or in the defaults are weird ones. That is not the MFD rework. The MFD rework is going to be building blocks and manufacturer specific. So they'll have a lot more character to them depending on what you're flying. You might be much more used to Aegis, and then you'll get in something like a Banu and you'll be like, where's the stuff? And it's right there. Map and radar system rework. Radar one is huge. It would be really cool to get it this year. It is a Squadron 42 asset, obviously, so it would make sense that it comes in sooner than later. I think that this one's low-hanging fruit shouldn't be a problem. That doesn't mean that it won't be delayed or come with like an engineering patch, but I would think if they were going to drop something on us in 3.21, I would expect it to be a smaller patch with fewer things that could break. So UI improvements, I've said for a while, would be an easy win. Like everything, quality of life just improved massively. You have the new map and it works great. You have a new radar and scanning system that looks cool. Your MFDs are in. Your Mobi-Glass is new, and all is right with the world. Mobi-Glass rework ending around the same time. Those two tend to go hand in hand. Map and radar system rework, MFD, and Mobi-Glass have all kind of been holding hands through development, which makes sense. They're very closely and tightly related. Again, I've been saying for a while I wouldn't be shocked if we got those at the end of the year, just because UI improvements is an easy win that doesn't break a lot. Whereas if you were to introduce something like engineering, which touches everything, engineering is going to have maybe not as bad a spin up as persistent any streaming did, but it might, because it touches every single ship. Every single ship has to be set up for it. And if anything in that chain is broken or isn't communicating right, the whole thing is going to fall apart and it's going to be miserable. So look forward to that next year, hopefully. But I don't think they'll drop that and Pyro in the same patch just because that is a lot. New interdiction scenarios. So I kind of wanted to talk about this one. This is another one that, even though they're ending out here and we could be getting new interdiction scenarios, I've been saying for a while that I fully expect minefields to come in, probably in Pyro, probably not in Stanton, being a civilized system. But new interdiction scenarios, they're always going to be rolling out new interdiction scenarios. So just expect this to stretch out and out and out. New mission cargo hauling, they were talking about this in today's ISC2, which tells me we're probably getting it next year. But who knows? Maybe not. We might get this one this year. Basically, instead of... Right now, we don't really have long-haul truckers in the game. You buy your own cargo, and then you fly it to another place and sell it. So all of the risk is on you. You put forward a lot of money, move something from A to B, and then you sell it, and a lot of bad things can happen in between. What cargo hauling will do is someone will say, I need this freight moved from A to B, and it doesn't matter what it is, although they might pay you a premium if it's something super valuable because they want you to take it seriously. Like, if you can get this thing from A to B, we'll pay you a lot, like Smoking the Bandit kind of stuff. That is what this is. So this is true long-haul trucking and shipping and freight and all of that, cargo, effectively. You're basically just a holding place for a bunch of other people to throw their cargo on, and then you are saying, for this amount of money, I will move it from A to B. That's what the cargo hauling mission is. Data heist, these sound kind of cool. It's getting into data stores and all that, which kind of tells me it's tier 0 of the info running that they've been talking about for a while, which I've always thought data heist would be a cool one to bring with a not a bounty system, but with salvage and mining claims. Like, you could have a scout ship, any sort of exploration ship, go out into the verse, find a resource, so a wreck ship, pirate base, mining, anything like that, anything that other players would find valuable. And then that info runner drops a pin on it and stakes a claim to that information. And then they can sell that information to another player, and that other player who has the ship that's able to take advantage of that resource can buy that claim, and then they know the location of that thing. I thought with the whole beacon system, that would be the easiest way to do data running. And then you just have people basically creating claims. You could have people flying around moons and terrapins and say, hey, I found a 10 rock thing of quantum here that's 100% pure. I'm not going to tell you where it is until you buy the claim. You pay a bunch of money for the claim. The claim could include the scan information, so you know that it's actually correct. Then you could have hacking gameplay and stuff like that where pirates and people could fake a claim and sort of say, it has this, this, and this, and then people would go there and get robbed. So there's a lot of different ways you could go with the claims. I'm really surprised CIG hasn't gone there yet. But anyway, data heist missions, it looks like this is where they're going first, is that you're going to steal data stores and then be able to sell it to someone else. If it's basically just going to be bunkers that you get a chip from, sadly, probably, but I hope not. I hope they have true infiltration missions, so think Hitman kind of things, where you got to sneak in, steal the information, and get out without people knowing that you stole the information, or if they do know that you stole it, it devalues. Sort of like bringing someone in dead or alive, and you bring them in dead, it's like, well, they just stole $20 worth of cigarettes, so we didn't want them to be killed, so, you know, we'll pay you $5 for taking them off the street, but you're not going to win any awards. Whereas if you bring them alive, you get a lot more money. So restoration contracts. This is cool because speaking of new game loops, the repair game loop is the flip side of the salvage game loop. So salvage, you're basically taking a ship apart. Eventually what it'll be, if you've ever seen Hard Space Shipbreakers, a lot like that. The first thing you'll do is go into a ship, shut it down, probably shunt off gases and fuel and all that so things aren't exploding. You'll unlock the components, you'll pull all the components and anything valuable in the ship, you'll pull that out. And then you'll pull off the skin, and then you'll start cutting up the ship and eating the ship itself. Restoration is the beginning of the opposite of that. So now you've got a ship that somebody wants to keep. They're like, no, I don't want to total my ship. I'm just missing one component. Now you have to go and you have to get the components. You got to get the repair tool and fix up the hole on it and stuff like that. So you're actually repairing it. And this will be tier 0 of that loop. So that is cool because repair is going to be a pretty huge game loop. And I would not be shocked if there's a ship on the horizon that's been sitting out there for a while in concept that isn't the Crucible, because the Crucible is huge. Like a mid to small size starter repair ship would make a lot of sense. So steel recover missions. These are another cargo mission, but now you have to get someone else's. The cool thing about this is that it's not just land on a planet and get the box from the derelict ship. They do have that, but it's also active ships. So now, as opposed to blowing the ship up, you have to actually disable that ship, get on it, and get the cargo. Because if you blow it up and it doesn't soft death, then the cargo is lost. It was destroyed when the ship exploded. So that's a big deal. So steel recover cargo missions for people that like a little more PvP but do like the kind of truck simulator thing, that might be the ticket for them. To kind of be true smuggler pirate type is around that, or even if you want to be a white knight that's going and getting stuff back. There you go. That one's pretty cool. Origin G12, again, I like this one. In fact, I'm just going to put up a picture here if you've never seen it. So that's the G12 right there. Sexy little beast. And I've been waiting on that one for a little while. Just it's a two-seater, so it's kind of like the Cyclone, but it's got an enclosed cockpit, which I think is cool. Origin X1, this is hopefully one that we're getting. Hang on, did they actually say? They don't have this one on the release view. I would expect this one to maybe be a sneaky add to 3.20.x or 3.21. I was running on the theory for a while that they were going to hold it back for the 600i gold standard, but that one we haven't heard anything about in at least a year, so who knows with the Origin 600i. I would love to see the rework on that. I think it's just a low priority for them. But the Origin X1, the G12, little wins, right? Outpost homesteads. So they were saying for a long time, or at least my theory was that we weren't going to be getting this until we got Pyro. And it does look like it's going to be a next year asset. But this could be one where they kind of roll them out to us bit by bit. I could see them putting these on Daymar and like the backwoods, the outback of Hurston would make a lot of sense. It would just be nice to have locations that aren't bunkers or dead trade zones, that are more like the villages that you would see in basically like Skyrim or something like that, where you can kind of land and trade things and sleep for the night or whatever. You know, you could log out there and log back in, pick up your ship, get your ship repaired, whatever. Little towns, little villages that aren't the major landing zones. Give them little personalities. I don't know how plausible that is. Just Star Citizen is a much larger world, so the scope they have to think about when designing these things, they can't do the sort of microcosm that games like Starfield can do, just because it's not a tailored experience. Anyone can go anywhere. Anyway, homesteads, probably getting them with Pyro, probably not until next year. Persistent hangars. So this is another part that goes along with the freight elevator, is persistent hangars. This will be where you live and work. For those of us that have been in this project for a really long time, for a while, the persistent hangar, well, the hangar was the only way you could interact with the game. You'd basically spawn up your ships and your beard moss, and you just run around your ship and kind of poke around inside of it. Of course, you couldn't fly it, but you had all these hangars. Now they're getting the real thing. Going to be Brave New World. PES and server meshing, again, huge. Once this is done, we get Pyro, effectively. You can see that it's wrapping here. Is it actually wrapping there? I kind of doubt it. It's going to be dropping out a ways. What's interesting is one of the teams that worked on server meshing is Squadron 42 UI. So I'm wondering if that was for persistent streaming or something. I don't know. But I would think this is going to jump again and be around out here. And then we'll get a PTU or Evocati right here. That is Pyro. Plasma ammunition. That's the other ammunition that I wasn't remembering. All right, so player HUD right here, another UI thing like Moby-Glass and the MFDs and Radar Map System Rework. You can see they all end right around the same time. This is going to be putting them onto building blocks. Again, this will be something that'll be manufacturer specific, so you'll be able to custom tailor it. If you're used to flying Drake, getting into Aegis is going to be way different. It's going to look completely different on your screen. That's what all of this is. Again, I would think this would be something that we would get for 3.21. No guarantees on that. It just sort of seems like a quality of life patch for 3.21 before they go on vacation for like a month and a half or start having all their team meetings would be an easy win. Like, everybody gets new UI, everything's pretty, everything works great, it's faster, it's smoother, it frees up more memory on the server side. Easy win. So people are all asking about Pyro for obvious reasons. Yeah, Pyro space station, spacescaping, system planet moons. Quantum simulation isn't related to that. But all of this around the end of the year, again, no reason why they can't keep just stretching that out. But most of the assets for Pyro have been in some state of completion, or at least like a tier 0 completion for a while. They've just been kind of polishing it, and that's because they're waiting on server meshing. So there's no reason to not just keep polishing and polishing and polishing until they got server meshing. And one of the reasons I think they're being quiet on that, actually two reasons. One, if they can pull it off, they want the big surprise and the big win for CitCon. Two is if they can't pull it off, which they're kind of leaning that way, like if they don't think server meshing is going to make it, they don't want to be building up hype for Pyro for a 4th year in a row and not meet that goal. So they're kind of playing it safe, which I'm all on board with. Quantum simulation, again, you're not getting quantum simulation. We have aspects of it now. I think it controls how fuel is priced, but it's not the real thing the way it's supposed to be. The economy is faked right now. Once quantum simulation is in, it won't be. But we're not getting quantum simulation until server meshing is in and working pretty well. Rastar, this is just how they're building pretty much all of their bases and settlements and all that is all Rastar. Eventually it'll be what we used to build those things with the Pioneer, and probably a couple other ships that are in the works but are waiting for more assets until they do. Resource management, this is the big one. This is engineering. Next year asset. No reason we might not get a tier 0 before then, but I wouldn't hold my breath. I would assume what they're going to do is release Pyro to the PTU at the end of the year and then release it wider, probably, hopefully by March of next year, if they can get server meshing working. If not, we probably won't see it until June or something. But once that is out and working, so a couple patch cycles, think 3 to 6 months after server meshing drops, unless everything is working amazing, then we'll get engineering. Then they'll start rolling in those game loops because they don't want everything broken at once because everybody will stop playing. So that's not fun for them. Our Polaris, I always like to point this one out, even though it's down here at the end. This is just as far as they have sprints planned. We are not getting the Polaris at the end of the year. It'll probably have minimum 90-week sprint, if not like 120. The Polaris is a big, big ship. Thankfully, we do have a lot of asset packs for RSI. So they have a pretty good style guide for that ship, or for that manufacturer. That makes it a little bit easier to work on, and it doesn't have any weird gameplay loops associated with it. It just has big torpedoes, and it's just a big ship. I think it's roughly the size of the 890. So those ships take a little bit longer, but if there was one big ship that I think that they could knock out faster, it'd probably be the Polaris. But the Polaris, it's not coming until minimum the end of next year. So the end of 2024, like around the time they're releasing Squadron 42, which is interesting because it is now a Squadron 42 asset. So the question is that Chapter 1 what I think we're getting at the end of next year, or is it going to be a later chapter? I have to wait and see. Salvage vehicle munching. This is the next iteration of salvaging. So where I was saying you go and you get the components, you eat the skin off the ship, and then you chew up the bones. This is the chewing up the bones part and cutting up the ship. Not until next year. Now that I think about it, I wouldn't be shocked if this is also waiting on resource management, because before you started eating the ship, it would be cool if you had to siphon off the gas or bleed it into space or the atmosphere or whatever, because you wouldn't want to be, if you're eating a ship that's full of fuel and atmosphere, it'd be like eating a bomb. So you wouldn't have a reclaimer for very long if you tried to do that. So it might be cool if they combine those two. I have no idea if that's what they're actually doing, but vehicle munching. Sea item handling. So this is one that I was wondering if they snuck it into 3.20. Someone was telling me that you can actually drink water while you're in the passenger seat now of like a rover. So it's apparently in. I kind of want to bring a gun and see if it actually works now, because that would be cool. Security Network V1. So when I was talking about hacking, this is what I was talking about. I wouldn't think we're getting this year. I would think Security Network V1 would be one that they'd pair with Data Heist and everything. I would think next year this would be something that would go very well with bounty hunting and pyro and sneaking into those big underground facilities. So even if they finish this, I would assume it's got more time to go. This is the mission feature team. So the question is, are they going to have a UI asset team, or was that all done with hacking? Because they've got the hacking deliverables up there. Don't know. But it'll open up a lot of doors. Literally. Sliding. We've got a lot of traversal things, a lot like the UI. Again, I thought that we were getting them at the beginning of the year. Turns out we did not. But you've got sliding, vaulting, and mantling, which we got in this patch. Swimming. EVA has been sitting out there for a while. It looked pretty good at last CitCon, to the point where I was like, well, this is probably going to be dropping in a month or two, and we still haven't seen it. It'd be great to get the new EVA. It's nice that they fixed the whole, you step outside and you just start spinning around crazy like, and your arm is all twisting up like pretzel and stuff. Not awesome, but eventually we'll get all of our traversal things and all will be right with the world again. Squadron 42 vehicle support. End of the year. If you're ever wondering why your favorite vehicle is not being worked on, all of the vehicle teams are involved in getting Squadron 42 out the door. So will it be better when they roll out Squadron 42 next year, if that's what's happening? Maybe, or they'll start working on Chapter 2. Don't know. Hopefully they kind of throw a bone to the PU and kind of start using those teams to work up some of the game loops for the backlog, which is mostly big ships that are complicated and don't have their game loop in the game. Work on getting all those game loops up and then get those games in. Swimming, there's the other traversal one, or another traversal one. Tumbrel Stank right back here, but again, no downstream teams. Will they finish the downstream teams by CitCon? Yeah. That one's not going to be too hard. Apparently, the issue that they're having with the Stank is actually the treads. I could see that being a problem since it's actually got 4 sets of treads rather than just 2. 2 is a lot easier to animate and make work with the programming, I would assume. Okay, so unannounced ships. We've got 4 here. I have finally decided this one right here is the Fury LX, which we just got. So 2 weeks from now, expect this one to go away and expect the Mirai Fury to appear in the up above parts. These 2 are going to be the Scout and the Exploration or Expedition versions of the Cutter. Montreal is working on that one. So they're variants of the Cutter. So that leaves this guy. So 34 weeks. VFX has already had their bite. There's going to be an audio team is probably going to get in there, but this is probably a CitCon ship. 34 weeks is not a very long sprint to build the ship, so I would assume it's a starter or a very simple ship with its game loop already in there, maybe a fighter or something like that. Bomber wouldn't surprise me, but it's something on the small side or something that's Connie size but very simple, so mostly empty space. Wouldn't be shocked if we're getting the Liberator when we get Pyro. Just the Liberator is kind of the bare bones pocket carrier. It has 3 pads on it. I don't think this is the Liberator. 34 weeks is way too short. Liberator will probably take 60 or so. I wouldn't be surprised if the Liberator is one of the other announced, but I don't think this is the Liberator. I think this is something unknown, so it's something new. I was thinking it might be the Tumbrel RTV, which is kind of the Jeep version, but hard to say. The thing that made me change my mind about that was in the monthly report that we got. So completed their work on the Tumbrel Storm, although they're currently fixing ongoing issues with the treads and how they appear. 2 new variants of an existing vehicle were completed too. That's the Cutter. All new ship progress through white box, revealing various areas that require updating from the concept, including increase to the interior space. So it's not the RTV. RTV is open and has a flat bed. So it's not the RTV. And I would assume they tend to throw a bone here. When they say ship, it is an actual flying through the air and space ship. It's not a vehicle. They tend to use vehicle when they're talking about anything that goes on the ground. So whatever this is, it flies. Maybe a starter. We've trying to think of which group doesn't have a true starter. MISC? I mean, MISC right now has the smallest ship they have is, as far as like the starter category goes, is the Reliant, and that is the equivalent of the Titan, the Avenger Titan. So having one size smaller than that might make sense, but then again, they've got things like the Razor and the Fury, although those both got moved over to Mirai. So yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you think down below. Always fun to speculate about what the unannounced ships are. 34 weeks, probably something small. I would say smaller than a Freelancer at 34 weeks, unless the EU team has gotten way faster at making ships. Just possible. It's a well-known manufacturer that they've got a bunch of extra assets for, like Mirai now. It's possible. Underground facilities. Looks like it moved over to Montreal. I don't know if that's new or if that's been there for a while and I just didn't notice it, but Montreal is working on... Oh, no, I did know that. Is working on underground facilities. Again, probably next year. We've got this unannounced thing that is actually the only deliverable that actually has time planned for next year. This isn't real because this is when they're on their holiday break. And then to about here, they're doing planning sessions for the next year. So that time right there isn't actually happening. Anyway, that's an unannounced ship. Underground facilities, Pyro. We're not getting them until we get Pyro. Will we get them with Pyro? Maybe. They might drop, if they can't get server meshing working, they might drop underground facilities on us in like Daymar or something. But I would expect to see this with Pyro. Vehicle tractor beams, here we go. Yeah, so it's looking pretty good. Weapon misfire and wear is looking good too. Will we be getting that this year? This is one for the last couple times I've done one of these. I have kind of doubted that this one is coming immediately. Basically what this is wear and tear happening to your FPS weapons. So your rifles and stuff like that, the more you use them, if you're out in inclement weather and things like that, they'll start jamming and breaking down. Unlike your ship, where you can just land on a pad, hit the repair button, and your ship gets repaired for money, we don't have anything like that for our guns. So are you going to lay the gun on the ground and sweep it with your multi-tool? Are you going to have to take it to a shop? Are they going to give us like a weapon bench that we can fix guns on? Don't know. So we have no way to actually carry out this in the current iteration of the game. So this one might be waiting a while, or they might just drop the whole loop on us and we're like, oh, okay, well, that was easily solved. Oh. And gang, that's all I have got for that one, for this one. So thanks for sticking it out. If you like what I do here, like and subscribe. It just kind of lets me know if people are interested or not in what I'm putting out. And if no one clicks on something, I'm all like, okay, well, nobody wants to hear about that. I'll talk about something else. Kind of what I ran into with Starfield, which I am going to have another review on I am going to have a review on. I haven't beat the game yet. It's actually just started to get interesting, but I don't think I'm going to keep doing my series on it. One, nobody's watching it, like I just said. And two, I've kind of got the gist, and doing all of the editing and everything for it just isn't worth the time. I would rather just enjoy the game and get back to Star Citizen. I only have so many hours in a day to play games, or hours in a week. So, yeah. We'll see. That's all I got, gang. Catch you next time.